on air.
Oh, there.
Yep, the Hangout on air live. Yes. So we are
Yeah.
here. Yes, it's awesome. I'm representing Repentino magazine from the United States this time. I'm kind of helping Repentino in Mexico City while they're kind of gaining ground, and I am lucky to be with a former lit editor and staff member for 3 years, and Alice Kanitz. And so, Alice, tell us a little bit about where you're at right now.
Right now, I study biochemistry and pre-medicine at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm a junior in college.
Cool. That's awesome. So cool being able to talk with you again after us working together, and then now you're in a different state. It's cool. So a couple questions just to jump in a little bit. Could you just, again, tell us a little bit about that progression of how you got into Repentino, what you did, and then what you ended up when you graduated?
Yeah, so I think I got in it was like toward the end, I think it was the last day of my freshman year in high school. And I spent a lot of time in the library, and I noticed all my friends were like signing up for this thing called Repentino that was a literary magazine, and I was like, wow, I like writing. So I joined, and they said, yeah, we still have a couple of positions available. I think we still have secretary. And so I just like signed on to be the secretary. And so for the next 2 years, I watched the magazine grow from like 6 people, from a 6-person staff to like a 60-person staff. I think it was like almost 60 people when I left. And I was secretary for 2 years, and then my last year I went for a literary editor, and I got the position. And it was just really exciting because I know I'm a STEM, science, technology, engineering, math major now, but I've always loved writing, and it's always been one of my passions. I still read a lot, and I still write a lot. And my favorite thing was poetry, especially freestyle poetry and later slam poetry. And Repentino is kind of like how I got exposure to a lot of that.
Cool. And that's what I think we didn't really realize at first. I mean, when I first took it over, I was approached by Camila de la Parra, and it used to be just this little interdepartment thing, publication. And then she said, well, let's try to bring it, to life. And we were finding we weren't getting enough submissions. So by opening up internationally, but I think as we got our feet wet and we started all collaborating together, we realized that the more we involve people in school and out of school, and then I don't know if you saw this or not. I mean, yes, it was always a publication. We were trying to represent Mexico in the best light that we could.
Yeah.
But what I started to see was it being a tool. And I don't know if other people, and I don't know if you've ever realized that. Maybe you realize that, I'll think about that more being in college now. But I look back on it, even the last 2 years before I left this year to come to the States, I saw it as a vehicle of maybe a launching pad for things that might be able to be done later on in college. And I didn't see it like that at first. I thought, man, everything is Repentino. Everything's Repentino. How can we build this up so everybody knows who we are? But in reality, now I look back on it even more, and I see it as a way that was a vehicle for doing other things that I want to do to reach out even further and be really proactive in a lot of service organizations. And I know you're just seeing your posts on even your Facebook site, you're really actively involved in a lot of service projects, it looks like. And I'm just curious, do you think a lot of that stems from maybe learning how to do that as not just Repentino, but I mean, a lot of the service things that you did at school, but did you ever, or do you ever see Repentino now, hindsight, as like a launch pad for just a training ground for how you could impact a larger audience when you got to college and all? Or just curious.
Yeah, no, definitely. Actually, because when I was a freshman in high school, I was kind of really shy, and I was really afraid to put myself out there. And I was kind of like, I wasn't thinking about college yet. And I was kind of like, what's the point of even like joining orgs or organizations that I don't want to join? What's the point of like doing all these things for your resume? And so I joined Repentino because I loved it and I loved the idea. And it turned out to be something I wrote a lot about on my college applications my senior year. And I realized it wasn't just a resume builder for me, it was something that I really cared about. And so when I got here, I made sure to join organizations, not just for my resume or for my med school applications, but because I really loved whatever I was doing. And also in Repentino, I learned how to take leadership positions that I probably wouldn't have been able to get, or probably wouldn't have ran for in any other club, because it was a club that I cared about so much that other people saw through that, and other people looked up to me in that organization. I'm not saying looked up to me as in like they particularly admired me maybe, but I'm saying like they saw my passion and they recognized my passion. And I think that's kind of what I tried to do in college, and I've tried to join different organizations. And right now I'm representing international students in our student government, but I've tried to do things that I'm passionate about, and people see that, like they see that I actually care and put 100% into whatever I do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something Repentino taught me, that it was okay to care, even though it might not be cool in high school. It will be cool someday when you get to college. It's a lot of thoughts all at once. I'm sorry.
That's great. I mean, remember, I was so focused on Repentino for so long. I mean, my job was to be a librarian. And the thing is that I originally had seen the way to get students into the library was to bring something into the library that they would gather around. And so it seemed to work out slowly and slowly, where the magazine was kind of a vehicle to bring people into the library as a meeting place.
And open mic nights too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I mean, we did the open mic nights in the library. And so that was a big deal. And then people started coming to the library for sure. And I don't think I realized that to the point. I thought originally just joining a magazine would be a way to get them, meet the student body, to know who they were, not being from Mexico, not having been in Mexico before. And that did definitely do that. But then I think I matured a little bit as far as seeing what Repentino could do for the library as well, and bringing people in. And it did. It started to bring a lot of people in. My first year there, I didn't really even, it was at the very end of my first year when Camilla approached me. And I've said, hey, I like literature, and like, why don't we try to bring this thing alive? And it was amazing what we could do with 6 people, and winning awards at Columbia the first year. People are like, wow, we really got something here. And that was, I'm not sure, I think we would have stuck with it even if we hadn't won those awards, because I think realizing what we weren't able to get initially, with like the submissions, we weren't able to get a lot of submissions. People weren't really familiar with it. And for the next 2 or 3 years, I was so driven with like, how do we get this out? Every single thing that happened in school, I was trying to figure out how to tie it to Repentino. But the thing is, I think like 4 or 5 years later, and that really paid off, because that was pretty important to me, was for people and staff to see how diverse a magazine could be. And it didn't have to be just about print, which I think was about the reason why we started to take up issues like helping a small art school in Cambodia and being part of it, right? I mean, like things that didn't necessarily people would like, they didn't connect to a magazine, but then we did, because we thought, well, we're an international magazine, but we should also be like a service organization too.
And we also supported a lot of the other clubs at school. I know we always supported Bear Boosters and the athletics department, and I know we supported Drama Club a lot. And I think you particularly always tried to get everyone to like follow through with like Spirit Week and support organizations like NHS and Drama and Debate. And I think that was really cool, because it made us have a presence on campus that wasn't just, and we could see that it wasn't just for people who were like really into literature. Like at first it was people who were like, yes, I am sure of myself and my knowledge in literature and art. I identify as an artist, something like that. And afterwards we started bringing in people who were just curious. Like they were like, I have never written a poem in my life, but I'll try. And they were really good. And it was great. The last year that we had, that I was there, we had a staff of like 60 people. A lot of them were not originally like they weren't planning to go to school for art or for writing or for any of that. They might have been good writers, but it wasn't their focus, but they were interested in the whole scene. And that's because Repentino made such a point of like being interested in what they were interested as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the bigger window, you know, because I think, and not that I'm definitely not happy that I left Mexico. I mean, like family situations occurred with my mom and my family that I needed to make that decision to leave. So that was a very, very, very difficult decision after like building something and seeing it grow, grow, grow. And then we had so many people from all over the world that we still keep in touch with, even though that they were not in the magazine, we still maintain all the contacts. And I think that's awesome. I love to have that still, you know, like it's a graduating class, you know, I mean, it's awesome. But I think, I mean, I really wanted, and I still want like the magazine to understand that it's not like about me or the people that were on it alone either. Like the people that were on it, as well as the people that are on it, they still have this commitment if they really believe in it as a community. So me leaving, I want them to see that it doesn't matter that I'm not there. I mean, like really, I think I really want everybody there to just take it over and not have to be like, well, and I'm seeing that now. You know, Mr. Buckley is an art teacher there, and Bessie Hernandez and Jose Ayala were like they just rose up from being staff and now they're editors. But the thing is that it's really important, I think, that they come in on their own and they realize that on their own, because that's going to be so important when they go on their own to another college. But I think they can instill that in other people in the magazine, saying, look, this isn't about one person's idea necessarily. This isn't about four people's mission, and it's not important to everybody else. Like everybody has to figure out a piece of how that's important to them. And I'm hoping that they find that in Repentino. That's all. I mean, like maybe they can find pieces of that in other organizations as well. I mean, but I was hoping that in the beginning we were one of the only groups to kind of get that across, like 7 clubs in ASF should be helping 7 more clubs in ASF. It should be like a big community. And it should not be like dog dog world, you know, everybody for themselves. Because look how much stronger things can happen when you have a bunch of clubs together working together. That's amazing. And I'm not sure I ever saw that before, where people are just like always trying to raise enough money for themselves. But I mean, by putting ourselves out a little bit for somebody else, it seemed like then we grew even more. And I think, I don't know, I hope that they realize that. But I think it's really important that they realize that on their own too. And sometimes, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that they'll realize that without me being there as well, because it's not about me or you or like 5
It's not
people.
about the individual, it's about everyone. And I think I see that in college too. I mean, I am a pre-medical student, which means that a lot of students in labs are trying to compete with each other to get the highest grade. But I still see a lot of collaboration even then. And I still see a lot of like everyone studies in groups, everyone, organizations, if an organization is having an event, other students from other organizations all go to that event so that everyone can support each other. And maybe it's just my particular school and not every school, but I just feel like there is a very competitive but collaborative approach to everything. And I think that's really important because, yeah, it is important to like realize that you have to, it is important to compete, but it is more important to be collaborative and to work together with others to achieve the same goal. And I think people who come here will notice that their college experience is going to be so much better if they work on making those connections and on working with others.
But that's awesome. I mean, like, I'm curious because I get this question all the time since I came to the United States. They're like, so how are you doing? How are you doing? You know, like everybody's like, because when I was in Mexico, I was never, ever leaving Mexico. I loved it so much because I felt like I was surrounded by so many different diverse ideas that were voiced and that were respected and that were actually taken into consideration. More so than I felt like dominant voices that felt something and didn't really see both sides of the picture. I didn't feel that as much when I lived here all my life in the United States. I felt like I was, the 6 years that I was in Mexico, in those 6 years, I felt like everything was so much more promoted to be more diverse and respected, even though you had differing opinions, even more than the States, which shocked me because I wasn't expecting that. And I learned to stand back a little bit and relax, not be so stressed about things, and just take the average day and the average life so much into consideration, had time to reflect on that so much more. And then when I came back again the second time, I think I'm much better than I was living here all my life because I did have that experience and I was able to retain some of that and understand, wow, this is what it looks like from the outside, a lot different. And if you've never been living outside the United States, if you did that for even a year, you would notice a big change in how you see things that are happening in the United States versus outside the United States. So when I came back the second time, I was lucky enough to have the experience of Repentino. When we go to Columbia University, and I remember several times people actually didn't believe that we were from Mexico. They thought it was New Mexico, and they were just double checking.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I mean, like, I don't remember ever going to Columbia. Even we used to go to Columbia when I was working as an English teacher in high school for the yearbook, and we would compete on that level for our yearbook, and we never really got anything. We tried, and we did a lot of creative things, but we never really got recognition like we did when we did for Repentino, which is funny. But even when I was at Columbia then, it was only pretty much schools from the United States. There wasn't a lot of schools from other countries. And so it made me really proud to be there at Columbia representing Mexico because I wanted to break through that barrier that I had not seen before of there not being a lot of diverse schools represented at Columbia from other countries. And I think that if not anything, we did a very, very good job of representing a voice of people that thought Mexico is this, and but look at us, Mexico is actually this, and we can show you that. Yeah. So I think I realized that when being a Repentino, but I'm curious because you're originally from Brazil, correct?
Yes.
And then you studied a long time in Mexico City, and then you went to the United States. So
yeah,
looking back now that you're in the States with everything going on, everything between the controversial things in the government, between the white supremacy issues, between right now the issues with women and how they've been treated, and now their voices are finally being heard and actually taken seriously. Like, has any of the way you view these things, has that changed since you've been in the States, or has any of that, like your experiences from being in Mexico and being from Brazil, have that helped you like stand a firmer ground on those things, or like just reflecting on all those things going on? What do you think about that and your influences by being in another country before coming to the United States?
I think the fact that I'm originally from Brazil. I lived there for 11 years. I lived in Venezuela for a year and a half, and then I lived in Mexico for 5 years. And then I came here for college. And I think that gives me a different perspective from a lot of my fellow peers. But I also think a lot of my peers, like, I am sheltered in some ways because I do live in a college campus, and outside of that college campus is the city of Austin, which tends to be more liberal than maybe a lot of other places in Texas and in the United States. So I mostly do. There are a lot of organizations on campus that promote the stories of women. For instance, there are a lot of cultural organizations on campus that celebrate Mexican culture and cultures of different countries. And I think, and I've been involved with some through events or through being a member. And I think the people I surround myself with generally are also very supportive of minorities and of women and of LGBT folks and all of those things. So I haven't really been in contact with firsthand contact with a lot of like the issues you described. However, I know a lot of people have been in contact with that, and friends have been in contact with that, and I know it's something that I definitely am afraid of because I just feel like people don't get it. For instance, the whole immigration issue. I feel like people, first of all, they think that either you're a citizen or you're undocumented. There's no in between. There's no different types of visas, and there's a lot of different types of visas. And second, I feel like some people just feel like they can't have compassion for anyone who looks different from them or whose last name is from a different culture than them. and which is something that does kind of scare me as someone who is not American, and is a woman. Is a little scary to think that there are people out there who literally don't think I am the same respect as another human being who might look different from me. If that makes any sense. I might not be very coherent right now.
No.
But it's just, I just feel like a lot of people haven't, so many of the people I meet here have never even left Texas. And a lot of times this is because of like financial issues, which is fine. But so many of them put in very little effort to educate themselves in issues that don't pertain to them, or to like learn about other cultures. And I just wish that was something I could change. And I think on campus, there's a lot being done to combat, but extending beyond college campuses and high schools, then I don't think there are a lot of programs where people are like learning about things that aren't just pertaining to them and their own culture.
I think the thing is, I never wanted to come back to the States and work in a public high school again after having the amazing feeling of working at the American school, because I felt like there was a lot of opportunity there for me to grow all the time. And I was always supported by the administration, the teachers, to do projects and things like that. And maybe there was a little bit of resistance at first because they're like, why do we have to do so many, blah, 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 blah. But then when they started to see the last couple of years of like how successful things were, because we were really going outside of the box, and it really took up. And a lot of people are like, that's amazing. Like, who would think to do that and this and that? And so, you know, the thing is, maybe I was looking at it wrong too, though, because when I came to the United States, and this second time, this was just since August, so not a long time, and I went back to work in a public school, high school, and I was in the library. It was funny because I kept on hearing people say to me, you know, like, you're all over the place. You're never sitting down. And the last couple of people we, you know, had in this library, they're just sitting behind the desk all the time. They don't even come out and talk to us and things like that. So that was like a really good starting point for me to really like, okay, so we'll start there. You know, I mean, this is a really good chance for me to show like how different it can be, given a chance that you do different things. And I think it also is the same way with approaching different things. Like, here's Day of the Dead coming up, and we have the opportunity. We have a really high percentage of Latino students in the school, and there's a chance to like really go into detail over the next couple of days of like what a friend is and like how you celebrate Day of the Dead, instead of them just seeing and hearing it in like a second and then it going away. And even more so because I was in different places in Mexico that really got to the core of what it was. And I think that's such an exciting opportunity to be able to break that out and now present it in different ways that will attract people to the library, because they're like, did you see that thing in the library? What is that? You know, like we build an ofrenda and we start adding things to it every day, and people will like remember that because they've never seen that before. So I think it's a really good opportunity to present things that might break down some walls. You know, when we were at the homecoming pep rally at the high school here just last week, and it was just amazing because the sophomore section, there was a whole bunch of people sitting on one side. And then you go to the right side of the same bleacher where everybody's a sophomore, and there's a very clear line. And onto the right side of that line was everybody that I could see in the sophomore class that was of Latino descent. And they weren't sitting with anybody else. They were all separated, like willingly on their own. But it never struck anybody to be like, well, we all sit together. And that really, like, I just was like, I noticed that right away, and I was like, I hated it. I mean, like, not that I hated it, but I just didn't like it. I was like, I just wish there was no line there, you know, like, there shouldn't be a line, you know? And I mean, I just think, like, the little things that we did in Repentino were just a stepping stone. And there's so much, the more things that actually Repentino does in Mexico that reaches out and does things on a practical level to reach people outside of the school, then they'll realize how much of an impact that will have in the real world, too. And I think that it does have the potential to do that after we kept on growing and growing and going to New York and doing workshops and presenting them there. It's just like one little chance to like talk to an audience that you wouldn't normally talk to from a different background or a different experience of never really hanging out with students from Mexico. But I mean, like all those things, even when we would go out, like we'd go to a dinner cruise, you know, and like we met kids that were from like another school. I mean, like just that mingling.
Yeah, I remember crashing someone's band party.
Yeah, but you know, like you guys were saying, my gosh, it was so boring, you know, it was so quiet. It was like Illinois or something, you know, and like then we crashed that party and everybody starts playing Mexican music and then everybody was just like, raw, you know, it was a party, you know. But the thing is, like, I think even in those social situations, you have to like really use those social situations to that effect and be like, look, this is a way to get some common ground to have discussion. And I think if there's a lot more discussion in the United States before, instead of just a lot of lashing out and just anger, you know, instead of like, that was one thing Mexico taught me, was to sit back and take in first the things that were happening before you automatically speak and jump out and almost hurry up and do this, or if we don't hurry up and do this right away, we're going to miss that opportunity. But instead, you know, it was different in Mexico where it's like there's plenty of time, just chill and like take in this and then let's talk about it later. And I think I could see so many places and spaces in the United States where that would be so helpful, instead of everybody just lashing out with their emotions and their anger. And if they would just like, okay, you know what? We saw this happen. This was horrible. Yeah.
I definitely see that in Mexico a lot. And it's just like not everyone is laid back, but everyone is more like willing to sit down and talk about it and joke about it. And like we saw, like with the recent response to the earthquake, we saw like people helping other people in an unprecedented way. Like there were, like, I think one of the volunteer organizations was saying, please stop sending us volunteers. We already have too many. Please stop sending donations. We have too many. And I think that just shows the kindness and the hearts of the Mexican people. And I think here I have seen a lot of this here at my school. But I think this is also because it is the millennial generation, and I know a lot of people say that we're entitled and that we spend all our time on our phones, but it's not really what I have personally seen. I think we are generally a kind generation who tries to have empathy for others and tries to give back our time to others. But I have still like seen a lot of seen the individualistic outlook of the United States. I've seen that a lot in people. And I think it's kind of a balancing act. Like you have to be individualistic enough to not set yourself on fire to keep others warm, like know when to step back. But you also should be giving of your time to others, because we don't live here by ourselves. We live here with everyone else. And I just wish that we could have more conversations and we could just sit down and make the world a better place. The motto of my school is what starts here changes the world. And I think everyone here takes this very seriously. Like they get up and they think, how am I going to make the world a better place today? But I also don't know if that's true of everyone here in this country. And I love being here in the U.S. and I love Mexico. Mexico City is my favorite place. I tell everyone to visit Mexico City. But I think that multiple experiences I've had since in Mexico and since coming here have helped me become this kind of person who understands both countries' outlooks in the world and just wants to like do the best I can to be a good person and to give my time to others.
Yeah. I mean, when you're looking back, you know, and like this upcoming week, Monday through Friday, at least in the United States, this is the time where a lot of students are going to be applying to colleges in the United States. And it's like the application process. So, and I know they've already started thinking about that, you know, in Mexico City at ASF. So I'm curious, because when you first came to the United States and first came to college, I'm sure you had a lot of like, you know, anxiety and a lot of thinking this is what it's going to be like and this is what it's actually like. But what is one thing that you could say to all those people that are applying to colleges, whether it's United States or in Mexico or out of Mexico, that maybe a couple things that you didn't expect that kind of hit you? And also, can you give them like any advice about what to do coming from ASF that would like let them be prepared for what they're about to, embark on as far as this new part of their life, in college? I mean, what kind of experience did you have that maybe hit you right in the face, but also some advice you could give them?
Okay. So I came to a really, really big school. I think we have 52,000 undergraduate students. So I always had it in the back of my mind that like, if one thing doesn't work out, or if one person doesn't like me, it's fine. There are 52,000 other people here at this school and one of them will like me. And I will have at least one friend, like it will be fine. One organization will take me. I will find my place, and it might not be right away. And I think that's something important to remember, especially if you're going to a really big school. You might not find your place in the school right away. And it also might not be the place you think is your place. I don't know if that makes sense. I came in when I applied to college at around this time, 3 or 4 years ago, 3 or 4, something like that. I thought that I was going to do theater. And I thought I was going to be a theater major. And then last minute, I got some doubts about it, and I was like, do I really want to do that for the rest of my life? And I applied undeclared, and that's another thing. Don't be afraid to apply undeclared. It's better than being in a major you hate. And then when I got here, I was like, okay, I want to do chemistry. I think I want to be a researcher, and I just want to research things related to chemistry. And then I quickly realized that while I love science, I am much more of a people person than I even thought I was in high school. And since putting myself out there a lot in different organizations, since coming to college, I realized that I really like working with people, and I really, really like taking care of people. And that's what made me want to be interested in being a doctor. And specifically, I want to become a psychiatrist. And I realized that through talking with other people and thinking back on my own experiences and on friends' experiences and on family members' experiences with mental health. And I was like, this is something that I think is really important, and that's what I want to be. But I also reserve the right to change my mind later on. And if I complete my 4 years here and then I realize, you know what, I actually don't want to be a doctor at all, it's okay. And it's okay to change your mind. And it's okay to explore new things and be around new people. And I say this because when I came here knowing my boyfriend, who is still my boyfriend, and he also goes to UT. And like, that's pretty much it. So I had to make an effort. I knew I had to make an effort to put myself out there and meet new people. And even if you're really shy, just do it. Just join something, join an organization, join a sports team, like a lot of colleges have things like ultimate frisbee and Quidditch and things like that. Join something you never expected to join. And maybe you'll hate it and you don't have to stay there. But I personally remember not being in high school, I was very into like drama and Repentino. And I was like, that's pretty much what I'm going to do. When I came here, I joined service organizations. I joined an all-women organization, which is something that really surprised me about myself. But I have made some of my best friends in that organization. I didn't think I would ever apply to a position in student government, and then I did it. And it's things like that, like you really have to put yourself out there, but also know that you'll be fine. And a lot of people around you might be meeting their best friends in like the first second of freshman year, like orientation day. you might not meet your best friends until like second semester sophomore year, like me. You might not meet your best friends until junior year. You might meet your best friend at orientation. And any of those is fine. There's no specific timeline that you have to adhere to be considered normal. And another thing is just like, I know this is like the most basic advice ever, but just be yourself and people will like you. The people who matter will like you. And yeah, I think specifically for applications, start them early, at least a week early, and have more than one person look at your essays. And always write more essays than required, and by that I mean, like for UT, when I applied to UT, there was only one required essay, and then I wrote the optional essay as well, and I'm pretty sure that's how I got in. I mean, I'm sure there's other factors involved, but always make sure that you show schools that you really want to go there. And yeah.
What about? Oh no, that's good. That's excellent. I mean, with the name of Repentino too, which means all of a sudden or without warning, based on all your experiences right now, to like leading up to your life right now, how would you say? Because we always do this in the interview. We always ask people, how that idea of Repentino relates to them in their life right now at this point. So, with that, how would that idea of like all of a sudden or without warning relate to your life right now up to this point?
I think my whole life has been very Repentino and very all of a sudden. A lot of things that have happened to me, I did not expect them at all, like in the least bit. I think whenever I think that my life is going terribly and I got a bad grade maybe and I am stressed out because I have a lot of things to do next week, something good randomly happens. Like I get for instance, during the summer, I was really upset about a variety of stuff early in the summer, and I applied to this internship at Dell Medical School, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get in, and I was in the 10% of people who did get in, and I got that notification, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I got in. So everything in my life is kind of like a surprise, and all of a sudden, and a lot of times I think that my life is going to go one specific way, and it doesn't go that way. When I got here, I thought that I met like a couple of people at orientation, at freshman year orientation, and I thought they were going to be my friends, my best friends, and I never talked to them again. And I thought that I had to, like I said, I thought that I had to meet my best friends in my first semester of freshman year. I met them in my second semester of sophomore year. I thought that I had to like follow a certain path, and life just throws you curveballs all of the time. Just a week ago, I was stressing out about this organic chemistry exam, and I was like, I'm sure I'm gonna fail. I'm sure that I'm never gonna get into medical school and things like that, and I'm always doubting myself. And I got my grade back, and I got an 80, which is sound very high if you're in high school, but if it isn't a chemistry or organic chemistry 2 exam, that's good. And I was just like, and this was like when I only studied for like 2 or 3 days. So I was like, if I put in more effort, I could do whatever I wanted. And it's just like constantly having curveballs thrown at me, like whether good or bad. Sometimes you have bad surprises. Like sometimes a lot of different things can happen in college. Like one time I had to go to the hospital for I got so sick that I went to the university center, and they sent me to the hospital because I was that sick. And I was like, I really don't need this right now. I need to be doing my assignments. I have things to do. Life did not care. It still threw me that curveball, and I was fine. And that's the other thing. You will survive everything, and you'll be fine.
I have to tell you, like literally, I'm like so incredibly proud of you because, but I remember you the second year you were on Repentino in the first year, and the second year we had the new staff meeting. I remember we were somewhere in the English room. I think it was now it used to be Ben Clark's room, Mr. Clark's room, and I remember all the new people are rushing in, and this was the first time since we had. Getting new staff that was overwhelming. Like every seat was full. And I think it was the first time I remember it being that crowded. And we knew that some people weren't going to stay, but we knew that some people were going to stay out of all those people. And it was more than we had ever seen. And I remember we started talking about things that we were going to do new. And I remember, I remember it's great. It's classic Alice Kanitz at first, because I remember you saying, you were raising your hand like every 3 minutes and you were like, no, I don't think we can do that because we've never done that before. I don't think we can do this, and I definitely don't think we can do that. And you were really genuinely nervous and concerned, you know. And then it's hysterical because by the time you graduated, you were totally on the other end of that continuum. You're like, why can't we do something totally different? Or why we did that, but like that's boring. Why don't we try something else? And it was like totally different girl, totally different person. In those like 3 years, it was amazing to watch you go from point A to point like Z, completely different. But it made me feel really good because I thought, man, you're going to go on and you're going to be like taking that with you, and you're going to be doing that when you leave ASF, and you're going to be doing that at college. It's awesome. And I think that was the real purpose of the magazine. It's not to be like, it's pretty cool that we get a lot of awards, and it's mainly because we have a great staff and they work long hours and they're committed to those awards. I understand, and that's how we got to be known who we are. But then it's so amazing to be able to do things that are not directly related to Repentino that help other people, because I think that I was able to carry, and I hope other people that were on Repentino could carry those with them outside of the magazine and realize that was just a reason to do things that were other things out there. And when I go to college, I can do these other things. And maybe that's the answer to all the doom and gloom that we see in the news all the time, of all the negativity and stuff. If you have enough of those positive things that are other things that you're doing in the magazine, then hopefully there's enough of those that people will carry with them to not only change who they are, but I think to change the communities around them. And then that's probably the only way that I see everything getting a lot better, is people being able to just actively come together, and despite whatever mandates or laws are given out by government, fine, but you know what, the population is the real one that can make the difference, you know. And I think
Yeah. I think I definitely carry all of that with me, and I think if I hadn't joined Repentino my sophomore or the end of my freshman year in high school, I would probably not be the person I am today. Like, I honestly still talk about Repentino to people sometimes here in college, and it's not in a way that's like, oh, I only did cool things in high school, because that's not true. Like, I'm still doing cool things now, but I don't think I would have ever had the confidence to do interesting with my life if it wasn't for like the one time that I was like, whoa, maybe student organizations are cool. This seems cool. I'll check it out. And later on, like the open mic nights and performing and learning that I liked performing, like I think that built my self-confidence a lot.
Mhm.
And knowing that sometimes I would fail, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that taught me a lot, and I still carry that here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I didn't see it then when I left Mexico. There was nothing really I was happy about. It's not that I didn't want to see my family, and I didn't want to be near my family and be in a situation where I could travel and see my family. I missed all of that very much, and that was a big adjustment when I went to Mexico. But what I did find the last couple of weeks is how I can take what I've learned from Mexico and spread that in little pieces to people. And they've never had anybody do things for them that were commonplace for us when we were all together on the magazine. You know, like we do things that were just, we'd send thank you letters to every single person that would help us, you know, or like we would just show up and help like organizations, like you said, like Gamma and Drama, and do reviews for the theater group and figure out other ways of how we could represent us. But the bigger picture was also how we were picking other people up. And it's pretty awesome to be able to disseminate that kind of information to other people here that have never had that done for them. So if every one of our staff members who have graduated in the past and who are going to graduate take that with them and they do that wherever they go, it's pretty amazing how that can keep on growing and growing and growing, you know. And I hope that's what happens. Yeah. That's my big wish. It's great that, like I said, we're winning awards and stuff like that, but I think there's a reason, more important reason behind that, and I think it's the way that we do things, and I hope it's the way that we do things as far as considering other people, and I hope that should be like really what the magazine is about. It's great that we have awesome pages and cool content, and we reach out to people, but at the end of the day, a year later from now or 10 years from now, you're not going to remember that specific page, but you're going to remember the things that we did kind of get us there. And I hope that that stays, you know, like that's like why I wanted to see Repentino keep on going, but it's okay that it goes in other people's hands too. That's awesome. As long as it's the same central idea of how do I grow from this and like how do I make other people grow from it. I hope that keeps on going as long as that continues. And even if it doesn't, you know, one day it's like, look, we can't do this. But I think the people that are out there already that came from Repentino, they carry that with them, and then they have the ability when they go off to college as another launching pad before they get to the next launching pad, which is when they go off to their careers and into the real world. And as long as they keep on building on these ideas and projects that become a reality, that spread this idea that no one's ever thought of before, I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And I hope that's what, you know, I think that's hindsight. I'm like seeing that's what that was, we were really all about. So I hope that keeps on going that way. You know, that's all.
Yeah.
So just in general, like a lot of people, what do you see based on the service organizations that you're in? What do you see a lot of people saying is the solution for all these disagreements and these conflicts that are happening? Like we're seeing it firsthand being in the States, but what do you see? Like a lot of people don't have a lot of hope and they're just frustrated because they're like, well, this is being handed down by the government. This is being handed down by the government. I mean, what do you see as a solution to making things be on the uprise as far as like concern and consideration for a larger group of people, and with all these different restrictions on ethnic groups and women in general now that we're seeing that? And what do you see as being a solution for like things being better?
Well, I am only 19 years old, so I don't think I should be allowed to, you know, rule the world or anything, but I just try to do what I can within my power as a student and as someone here at this university and as a person. So maybe I can't change the laws, but I can raise my voice so that people, along with many other people who share the same opinions as me, so that lawmakers can listen to us. And maybe I can change something within the university. Like right now, as the director for the International Students Agency and Student Government, I want to work on making sure that international students' needs are addressed and represented. And a lot of times people even forget that we exist, or they kind of don't assume that we need any special sort of support. And I want to kind of figure out, like, well, first of all, we need a scholarship, and we need more scholarships, and we need discussions on basically like how, because being foreign in the US can be very difficult, and basically like having that support. And we have a lot of other initiatives. So it's kind of like just seeing like what can I do to help those initiatives. And then I'm also in an organization called The Project, and what we do is we go to underserved communities here in Austin, during one day of service, and we sign up over 1,000 volunteers from UT, and we just bring them to this year a community called Runberg, and we just do a lot of beautification projects in public areas, and that, like, what one volunteer does might not seem like much, but when it's 1,000 plus volunteers, that is a lot, and organizing that helps, and that's helping a little bit, even if not a lot. And then with another organization that I'm in called Women of Excellence, we go to a women's shelter and we help them with whatever they need. And so it's just doing a lot of things, like they're not maybe signing a petition or creating a petition. They're not like big things, but we can do a lot within our own communities, like my community in the university, and my larger community is in the city of Austin. We can do a lot with them, in these places, if we just make the effort. And a lot of times, sometimes the answer is maybe complaining, like petitioning or like protesting. And and sometimes it's doing something about it that is, but I don't mean it in a bad way. I don't think protests are ineffective. I think they are very effective. And sometimes it's just like taking action and volunteering. And I think both are good ways of helping us change the world.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest thing that you miss from Mexico?
I think one of the things is definitely the Mexican food, because, like, yes, we have Tex-Mex, but it's not Mex-Mex. And
that's funny.
And I try. And then there's also, a lot of the people in Mexico, I mean, people here are great, and people in Mexico are great. People in Mexico have a sense of humor about anything, though, which is really cool. Like, you can, they have like a more like free sense of humor. Like, you can joke about certain things that here I kind of have to like take a step back and think, like, will this person be upset? Because the way that I've noticed, at least, people relate to each other in Mexico is like, if they're friends with someone, they'll make fun of you. Like, if you're friends with me, I'm gonna make fun of you. While here, not everyone is cool with that. So just kind of like taking a step back and realizing like how everyone relates to each other. But yeah, I really do love the people. Everyone is great in Mexico. Not as in like, not as in, there are problems with the government, obviously, but like, so many people, the people of Mexico are so great and so kind. And yeah, I just wish it was like that in every part of the world.
Yeah, I agree. I missed that part. There's a lot of things that, I didn't know about Mexico, and then when I went there, everything was like, wow, this isn't what I read on the news, or this is not what I read in the newspaper. It's kind of misleading.
A lot of people I've noticed are like, sometimes they're concerned because they think like, isn't Mexico super dangerous? And I'm like, no, there's like a couple places that are super dangerous, not everywhere, not Mexico City. Mexico City is safer than Houston, and you lived in Houston. Like, usually that's like.
Yeah, right. I agree. All right. Well, we could talk forever, but I think that we've got a really good pieces of information that we can pass on to a lot of people at Repentino, and it's been amazing catching up with you. So I hope that we still stay in touch with you. Not only, like, I plan to stay in touch with Repentino from afar, but I hope that, you as well as other staff that were part of Repentino still do that as well. So we have this network of ideas and things that might lead to other projects, even if we're not all together at the school. I think that we could come together at different places and still come together for different projects that don't necessarily have to be like where we're in physical spaces together. So I hope that continues a lot.
Well, it's nice talking to you.
It was great talking to you. I miss you much, but we will get together at some point, and we'll have real Mexican food and not Tex-Mex, I think. So it'll be cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do love Tex-Mex though. I love Texas, by the way. I'm not just
I like
not
Texas a lot. There's some very good things there too. Absolutely, for sure. So yeah, awesome. So all right. Well, we'll talk to you soon. And thanks
all
a lot
right.
for doing this with us, Alex. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right.
Bye. Have a nice day.